Take this. Sorry, I don't have my usual, packed up my usual around the house slippers, so I need to get some others. My feet get cold. All right, to TMI. Uh, all right. Oh, we're recording. Oh, hi. Hey. It is February 27th, 2024. And we're starting a retreat today at 4 p.m. And so for those of you who have a copy of Buddhism and the 12 Steps Daily Contemplations, this is an exciting week. Why is that? Anybody have an idea why I consider this an exciting week? Sherry knows. It only happens once every 4 years that I wrote the February 29th daily contemplation. And I have no idea what's in it. I haven't looked at it, but I think what is there a copy over there on the bottom shelf? It's the thick white book. All right, let me just take a look and we'll find out what's in there. Whenever I look at this book, it's a surprise because it was so I can't remember anything I wrote in. Oh yeah, it's called Leap Year. Might as well read this while we're here. Whether you read this page once every 4 years or decide to, quote, cheat and read it at another time, this can be a day to reflect on time. Vicky, have you been reading your LEAP material? There's a course that Vicky's in that's like we had a reading on time that was like mind-blowing. We build our lives around schedules, deadlines, and plans that are all based on time. In that process, we create pressure for ourselves to get things done in that relative framework. I have to get to teach a retreat this afternoon, at 4 o'clock. The Dharma implies something else, something timeless. When we meditate and try to be present, we are trying to let go of the concept of time. In the present moment, there is no past and no future. It is always just now. When we connect in this way, much of the stress and pressure of our lives melts away. A great sense of freedom can arise when we let go of accomplishing things, getting places, and fitting things into a schedule. On retreats, this becomes especially clear. But we can tap into this feeling in our daily practice simply by reminding ourselves there is only ever this moment. This doesn't mean that we stop showing up for work on time, throw away our clocks, or shed our relationship to schedules. It means that within these constraints, we try to maintain a connection to the timeless, to the now, to what isn't moving on a clock face. Take a breath and feel the reality of just this moment. Feel it in your body and in your mind. This moment and this breath can only exist now. It comes and then it's gone. To be caught in thoughts about the past or in plans for the future is to miss the only reality we really have, this present moment. Don't miss it. Well, I should read those things more regularly. I needed to hear that. So let's sit. So just settling into your posture and feeling your body as it is right now. The body breathing. All the processes of the body happening, flowing, moving. Even what we call the present is not graspable. There's no stopping, no stopping movement and change, breath, energy. Life is flow, movement, change. Our practice asks us to just be with this flow, not to resist, not to fear, but just to trust this movement, movement of mind, movement of body, movement of reality. And the breath as an object of meditation provides us with a clear reminder and example of this reality. And so we connect with that movement, those sensations, that flow, and just go with it. Underlying this process is the need for trust. Our fearful minds want to control everything, to hold on, to stabilize. As we watch our minds and bodies, we see that this strategy is doomed to failure. We can't control. Things are unstable inherently. And so paradoxically, the way to control is to let go. The way to safety is to accept the lack of safety. The way to stability is to be fearless in the face of that which is unstable. In this way, we move into the realm of the timeless. No reference point of past or future. We may still perceive the agitation of the mind, the way it squirms at being asked to let go, how it reaches out for something to hold on to, how it generates thoughts and images, memories and plans to try to create a world in which we are in control, things are predictable. So part of our practice is to step back from that proliferation, watch it, to even be undisturbed by the disturbance of the mind. Okay. So if you're wondering how much time we spent meditating, that was what we call 20 minutes. Um, and I'm pretty strict about making it 20 minutes. Um, yeah, so I was thinking about how, especially when you first start to meditate, the idea of sitting still or being quiet for some extended period of time is kind of intimidating, and then you get maybe good at doing 20 minutes or you learn to do 30 minutes. And then somebody says, well, you really ought to go on a retreat, you know? And then you're like, I couldn't, I couldn't be silent for that long. I could never meditate that much. So it's always interesting to me what it is that makes it difficult to sustain meditation. So I can't speak with any insight about time really as a philosophical concept but but as a practical one, I think I can speak to it because I feel the impact of it, that sense of fear. I when I was preparing to go on a 6-week retreat last fall, there was a lot of anxiety, and it was just about how long the retreat was, you know. And and the thing was, every day was exactly the same. You know, it wasn't like, oh, it's going to get like really hard or it's going to really, it just was the same thing. And some days were easier, some days were harder, but that didn't really have much to do with how long it was. It just was like here at home in my daily life, some days are easier and some days are harder. But there's this concept, uh, and the other concept is is about the limitations of that uh, experience of where you are, location, right? I'm in this certain space, and I have to behave in this certain way, and I want to be somewhere else, and all of that tension that's just created in the mind. But what really shocked me and actually upset me was when we got to halfway through the retreat and I felt the anxiety start to subside more. And I realized that the reason the anxiety was subsiding was because I had made it through the length of time that was now left to go. I had gotten through half of it, so I knew that I could get through another half. And I thought, have I had that on 10-day retreats? Like after 5 days, do I start to feel more relaxed? Because we have this concept of settling in on retreats, which, supposedly is based on time, right? It takes a certain number of days, we are told or we believe, in order for the mind and the body to settle in to get comfortable on retreat. Okay, well, there's a certain logic to that, right? We're coming from a very active, busy lifestyle, and then you're into this very different context where you're quiet and not moving around, and there's no distractions, no entertainment, no screens. But there's this other thing, which is that like on longer retreats, it takes longer to settle in. And I don't know if I've heard that concept or if I just made it up, but it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, why would that be? Is there some like deeper place that you're going to get to. And I kind of, I mean, you know, my beliefs and opinions about things change over time. But right now, in this moment, I kind of think that that's just an illusion that's based on anxiety about time. And that because I remember back in the 80s, like when I was newly sober, I was really busy and I didn't have time or money. Time and money go together, by the way. We could have another talk about that. But anyway, time is money, right? Let's not go there. But for several years, I only was able to go, every year I would try to go on a retreat, but I could only go on like a 3-day retreat. And I can remember, like on the second day of a 3-day retreat, dropping in and getting into a really deep place and being like, wow, that's really amazing. Which actually reminds me of another time, several months after in 1982, in 1981, I went on a 3-month retreat at Insight Meditation Society. And several months after that, in the spring, I went back there for a weekend. And I had a friend who was on that, who had stayed there. They used to call them LTYs, long-term yogis, who would just stay at IMS. Now they have the forest refuge for those people. In any case, last night, so I went there on like a Friday, and I don't know if I stayed till a Monday or whatever, but I think it was like Sunday night. We took a walk. This friend and I took a walk, and there's a long loop that you can take there. We took this loop, and you get to this lake near the end of the walk, and we stopped, and we hadn't really been talking. We'd been talking a little bit, but not a lot. And they turned to me and said, "You seem really quiet." And I know that what they were thinking was, I've been sitting here for like on retreat for like all these months. Like that person was on the 3-month retreat and then they went away for like a week or two and then went back and they'd been there for like another 3 months, which means that they felt like, okay, I'm in really deep. And this person just shows up for a weekend and they were right. Like I was really deep. And because like there was no, if for me at that point, going for like 3 days, there was no anxiety. It was like, it's like for me, if someone says we're going to do like a 10-minute sit, I'm not like, oh boy, can I sit through this? But if somebody says we're going to do a 90-minute sit, I might be like, well, I don't know, like that's sounds difficult, you know? So, uh, again, like our concept of like how long something is going to be has a huge relationship to how we feel about that thing. I mean, we obviously things like pain are like really obvious, right? If you stub your toe, you're like, ow, but you're okay. You're not really upset. You might be mad at yourself, like, why did I do, right? But you're not really there. It doesn't throw off your day. But if there's an elephant standing on your toe all day, or, if you have a chronic foot condition, say, just randomly plantar fasciitis, let's say. All right, I just got over that. Then your relationship to it is different, right? I mean, I'm just stating the obvious. I had nothing to talk about this morning, so I'm just making stuff up. But, we see like, oh yeah, because my sense of like, oh no, I'm going to have to live with this forever or whatever, then the whole mind state changes around it. I mean, I'm not giving you any answers to this, I guess, except the obvious one, which is if I can stay in the present, then none of this is a problem. It's just, okay, they just feel this way right now. Um, in any case, just well, okay. As long as I'm having fun talking about time, I'll talk about one of my favorite topics around time. there's, human lifespan, which traditionally was 70, which I'm now several years past. Um, if someone dies and they're not at least 70, let's say, 70, then we think, oh, that's really kind of sad. They didn't really live a full life, right? Now, fruit flies live for 24 hours. If a fruit fly dies after like 2 hours, all the other fruit flies are like, that's so sad. They died it was just a teenager when the fruit fly died. If, on the other hand, you have like a fruit fly that's been alive for 28 hours, everybody's like, oh, the elder. But, there's no, if after 24 hours, it's like, that's fine, right? Like that was a full life. You lived a whole day, right? I mean, it really becomes apparent when you think about what they call deep time, geologic time. I mean, we just sort of like accept these things, right? Like, oh yeah, that was several million years for that mountain to be, and for human evolution, oh yeah, sure, a million years. No, oh, Earth was like, and in several billion years, the sun will burn out and the Earth will be destroyed. We're just kind of like, okay, sure, and of course, it has nothing to do with us, but except that, hopefully, it's a reminder of just how small we are, you know. Always trying to brighten your day, cheer you up. In the vast expanse of time, your life is meaningless. Sorry. Uh, well, I think that requires me as a Buddhist to, and I don't even like to say I'm a Buddhist, but let's say as an alcoholic to say, I mean, this is one of the great paradoxes, right? And I of Buddhism and of Buddhist practice and really any spiritual life. And it's I see it particularly embodied in the monastics. But just for us, the preciousness of a breath, of a moment, the preciousness of sobriety, you know, of and because there's a way in which you, of course, can take this idea of how small we are in the vast uh, space of reality and span of time and turn it into nihilism. Well, I might as well just drink myself to death, right? And yet the spiritual paradox is no, actually, this is incredibly precious and rare. Whether time is real or not, in this moment, there's definitely this body and mind functioning. And to if we're really going to look at this moment and that vast span of time, the miracle that there is consciousness that's aware of time, and like, oh, well, I really need to protect this consciousness because this is a rare and precious thing that we really don't know if it exists anywhere else in the universe. And so when I look at the way the Thai forest monks, or the monastics that I'm most familiar with, the way they live, it's with this care and precision for just every detail and just to be present for everything. And yet, they are taught and practicing with this timeless view and this vast view. Ajahn Amaro, his name Amaro means deathless, right? No, it's a very deep and profound just name, and pointing to something really deep and profound that could sort of make you think, well, being really precise about my sila and practicing with morality and generosity and following the precepts really carefully, that's not really important because everything is empty and vast, and I'm just living in this empty space of deathless moment, and I've transcended all of that. And yet, again, the paradox is that they live very much constrained by very precise rules and guidelines. Um, so, this is a day, as I said, when I'm probably less focused than some others, with my mind out in the future of like this afternoon, and we have to drive, and we have to pack the car, and what about the bell ringing schedule, and somebody canceled, and so I apologize if I've been even less sane than a normal madness that I bring to you. But I appreciate you guys showing up, and I'll just leave it at that and open it up if there are any comments or reflection. Maybe somebody can make some sense out of all this. But thank you. At least I see some people smiling, and that always makes me feel like at least we're having fun.
Hi, Kevin. So
Yeah.
I have a great retreat. I wish I were going to be there. But yeah, so I have been reading the stuff on time and
Yeah.
and location
Oh, yeah.
too.
Right.
I know, right? And yeah, it is mind blowing, and that's good. I mean, and all the paradoxes that you're mentioning, today, the it's not just this way. There's that big mind business and the emptiness.
Yeah.
And then there's also that quote about ethics being really central, and that's from the suttas. So the precision of taking care, just really taking care. So that nothing, everything business that people talk about, right?
Yeah.
Everything matters. Everything is precious. And there's not, all the supports are gone.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I'm not a Zen person by any means, but I appreciate the idea of a koan, that kind of mind blowing. You can't think it, it's just not thinkable. So, and how that sort of clears things out in a weird way, or it can. Yeah. And then also, the thing about settling, that we settle, things are unreliable. Things are do what they do. Yeah. So anyway, lovely to hear you. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
Yeah, good time.
I'm thinking about, how one can become attached to the emptiness, and in fact, I remember hearing Ram Dass speak one time, and he said Alan Watts told him that he was attached to emptiness. And this is one of the risks of our practice, right? You have a deep meditation experience and you think, oh, like this is what it's about. And then you go chasing after that. And much like the idea of using plant medicine for a spiritual experience and then thinking, oh, the experience is the important thing. I want to keep having that experience, right? Rather than, oh, that revealed something about reality that I need to uh, live my life guided by, you know, and so this is the place that I uh, you know, where I have concern, and it's again why for me sobriety is so important, you know, that because sobriety keeps you grounded in this really practical reality, you know, of just showing up, and I don't lie, cheat, and steal, and you know, honesty, and all those principles that, you know, when you have like transcendent spiritual experiences, you can get disconnected from reality and uh, lose perspective and get ungrounded in a way and irresponsible. You know, there can be this certain, and you know, and certain teachers like Trungpa are kind of these prime examples of this brilliance and insight and spiritual awakening that loses touch with the fundamentals, and and then we risk, you know, really doing harm not just to ourselves but to others. And so it's one of the things I love about Ajahn Pasanno. You know, I mean, he's been a monk for 50 years, and when you hear him speak, he doesn't speak about lofty experiences. He talks about sila, and he'll talk about the breath, and he'll talk about the refuges, you know. And you know, and I guess my view is that enlightenment, you know, it's like the 12 steps say, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. It doesn't say like the whole, just forget about these steps. Let's get spiritually enlightened, kind of. It's like that, and that. So what I'm getting at is that I trust that whatever spiritual awakening, whatever potential I have for spiritual awakening, will happen if I take care of the fundamentals, and that showing up day by day, non-harming of myself, non-harming of others, trying to, you know, be, I don't know, you know, a good person is not a great word, but you know, someone who has integrity, and that I practice, you know, that I practice meditation in a serious way, and that I reflect on Dharma in a serious way, but that I don't let that be, you know, be a separate thing from literally taking out the garbage, you know, doing the laundry, like cleaning the kitchen. Like that stuff is just as much my spiritual practice. And when I'm like, oh, leave me alone, I need to meditate, you know, then I'm really getting out of balance. And that's why I love, you know, the sutta, the Chula Gosinga Sutta that I wrote about in Living Kindness, where the monks are living together, and the whole half of the sutta is the Buddha asking how they get along and how they take care of their campsite, and you know how they, you know, how they practice kindness toward each other, and you know, and Anuruddha saying, I think to myself, why not put aside what I wish to do and do what these venerable ones wish to do? You know, just generosity.
Right. Yes. And service, right? In program.
exactly, exactly.
In a joyful way, not in a, oh, I have to do this, the rule says I have to blah blah blah,
right.
not like that. It doesn't have to be like that, which it kind of sounds like that sometimes in program. It's like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
there's your home group. Do you have a home group?
Yeah. No, no, agreed. And no doubt, joy. I mean, joy is one of the 7 factors of awakening. So if you're not enjoying it, it's not, I mean, people have, been bothered when I quoted Wes Nisker, and he probably wouldn't have even remembered saying this, but I remember him saying, if you're not enjoying meditating, then you're doing it wrong. Now, I know that's like, oh God, I'm doing it wrong. Right? It's like, no, no, the idea is like, don't make it into a project where you're like, fighting with yourself. Of course, it's not always pleasant. Of course, it's challenging, but there definitely, there are moments there, hopefully regularly and even daily, there are moments of like, yes, ah, and a lot of times, I mean, I was just noticing that this morning when I was sitting before, like unpleasant, unpleasant, unpleasant. Oh, and it just by showing up and putting in the time, there's this natural unfolding and that comes to a pleasantness. But it's mostly, and going back to time here, it's mostly about giving up trying to control my experience and being nervous about it or feeling overwhelmed, and just being able to be like, it's okay, I can sit here for as long as I want. Well,
Hey, Kevin.
yeah,
Bob.
Robert.
Alcoholic.
Oh no.
I just wanted to bring at the behest of a new sponsee, who is a native, and in Santa Fe area here, there's Hispanic, very Christian, very Catholic. We got the native population, large alcoholic population, and this guy he came around during COVID, and I really like him, and he asked me to be a sponsor. And I took it like he wanted me to read this book by Eduardo Rodriguez. No, I'm sorry, Eduardo Duran. Buddha in Red Face.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, this book, and then, it's about him. He's a psychologist. He works in the clinical field, but the natives, the people are these people, the elders are trying to get him to see this other way of being, and this other way of being is meditating on the breath, mindfulness.
Wow.
They're in these caves. I mean, I was like, wow, what is going on here? This is so like what we, since we started coming to the 12-step Buddhist, 20 years ago. I mean, this guy, he's really having a struggle with his feelings about colonialism and what it's done to his people. And the first AA reaction that when I talked with my sponsor and a couple other guys about it, he goes, he's headed down the wrong path. He's trying to find an excuse. And I don't see that in him. I see that he's trying to understand his pain and his trauma and the trauma of all natives, So I'm really, reading this book. It's an eye opener for me about the Native Americans and about their spirituality. And it's just amazing. I wanted to mention that. I don't know if anybody else had ever read this book.
Have you ever read that, Greg?
No, but I'm curious.
Greg,
I want to read it now.
Greg, if you guys didn't know that, Greg Pergament is here with me. He's Dharma teacher and Qigong.
Yeah.
and he's done a lot of work in fire tender and ceremonies. So yeah, it's not anything I know about, but we certainly know that indigenous cultures have always had pathways that had a connection to Buddhism, because they're grounded in the earth and in the universe, rather than like some I mean, the Judeo-Christian tradition is sort of an outlier. It seems to me, historically. Now I'm going to go way out on a limb, but I mean, as uh, what's her name? The Karen Armstrong, her book, The History of God. She says when Christians, early Christians, were called atheists by what we call pagan religions of the time, which, because they said, where's your God? Like, they're like, and the Christians were like, you can't see our God, and it's not anywhere you can. And they're like, no, God is like the earth and the sun and the rain. That's God. What are you talking about? And so in a way, I do think like that the Judeo-Christian idea of God has really kind of put us out of touch with more meaningful expressions of power, of higher power than indigenous religions. And I don't know if we can call Buddhism an indigenous religion. It's sort of like, it's a step whatever, a step away from that. I don't want to say it's a step up, because it's just a step, but it is rooted in earth. I mean, the four elements is one of the key practices the Buddha talks about: earth, air, fire, water. And his metaphors are almost invariably connected to natural phenomena. Anyway,
Yeah, it's an amazing book. I recommend it. I'm only halfway through with it.
we'll
Buddha in Red Face, Eduardo Duran.
Cool. And
thank you.
Monica managed to find it on Amazon, and apparently it's quite a long link to get there. Mike, you want to be the final comment? I'm opening this now. Oh yeah, Buddha in Red Face. Cool. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, hi Kevin. Yeah, this has been an interesting talk. And oh, hi Greg. And yeah, I tried to swing, I'm wishing you guys a good retreat. I tried to swing coming this year, but as kind of luck had it, I ended up being sick this week and I got conjunctivitis. So it's a good thing I didn't plan on going. But what I was gonna say was, you kind of mentioned something that kind of hit a chord with me about discovering the preciousness of life and the consciousness and appreciating that, and how kind of when you're drinking and using, you lose that and you develop, like you were saying, almost this nihilistic outlook on life, where you're just interested in yourself and what you want. And if you kind of, I guess, learning to tap back into that sense of preciousness seems like a really core part of getting sober. And I hadn't really kind of thought of it like that way. I mean, you think of the service and you think of the cleaning up the wreckage of your past and your amends and kind of all that stuff, but I think that spiritual awakening you were talking about as a result of these steps, I kind of think that you kind of hit on something for me there. So
well, right. I mean, fundamentally, addiction is killing life because the logic to me is you don't want to feel what you're feeling. So you use a substance, generally an intoxicant, that is something toxic, something that actually in large doses will kill you, to suppress what you're feeling. What you're feeling is your life, right? What more is, I mean, your life is your feelings, your thoughts, your sensations. That's it, right? Your mind, your body. That's the whole of your life. And when you use things to dull, suppress, and destroy those aspects of experience, then you are destroying life. Now, life, as the Buddha points out in the First Noble Truth, is not always easy. And this is why we try to suppress it, because we get into this, addiction is a devil's bargain, right? It's saying, I just can't handle it. I'm going to trade real life for this alternative version that I'm going to buy and put in my body, and alter my mind state. But at the end of the day, we discover, or at the end of our run, we discover that doesn't work. It's not sustainable. So it's really just suppressing and getting away from life. So coming back to this, so the problem of sobriety is, oh, now I have to be with all of life. And so this is where meditation practice, I think, is so helpful in this process of recovery, which is that it helps us to learn to actually accept. Acceptance is the answer to my problems today. It helps us to actually be serene, to be happy, joyous, and free, to be able to be with things just as they are. We learn to just sit and breathe for a certain period of time. We sustain our presence with whatever is arising, and we learn to be not to run away from it. And then we actually can, in our good moments, our more successful moments, like learn to be with the difficult and actually transform the difficult through acceptance, right? To be like, well, this is difficult. Let me just breathe and relax. Oh, it's okay. Oh, yeah, I feel that pain in my knee. Let me breathe and release into that. I feel that sadness. Let me breathe and release into that. Oh, that's okay. And it's really altering it. What we do in that moment is that we take the unpleasant and we move it into the neutral by our non-reactivity to it. And this then is, in very practical terms, ending suffering in that moment, right? And anybody who's meditated a bunch, which all of the people that I know here have, and I suspect most of you have, you've had this experience. You might not have thought of it quite in these terms, but you've had this experience of like, oh, this is unpleasant. Oh, let me just get cool with it. Let me just not fight it. Let me just be, oh, it's okay. This is okay, right? So that's like how we, instead of I'm going to suppress life with an intoxicant and alter it, I'm going to engage it. And we can say that one way of characterizing this engagement is love, right? That acceptance is a form of love. It's a kindness that we are doing, that we're, instead of reacting and running from something, we're saying, it's okay, I'm going to embrace you, I'm going to take you in, or I'm going to go into you, I'm going to merge with you. And that's love, that's connection. Now, this is the process we're engaged in day by day, moment by moment, that we call, recovery. I mean, wouldn't call it sobriety, because sobriety, you could be just not drinking and using, but not dealing with reality in this way that is what makes recovery joyful. To get back to that idea is like, oh, this is nice. This is okay. And this can actually be good. So that's a nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like we talk about with emotional recovery, right?
Right.
Or emotional sobriety.
Yeah.
So yeah, well put. Thanks, Kevin. And adding love into that, that's just the perfect kind of thing to couple up with that appreciation for life.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you all. Thanks for showing up. I'm going to be leaving for the retreat shortly. Come back on Sunday. I'll be back here on Zoom, presumably in this chair, God willing, next Tuesday. So for those of you who are not going to be on the retreat, we'll see you and we'll report back to you how the retreat was. So blessings and have a great week and happy leap year when you get there.
Thanks, Kevin. Many blessings for the retreat.
Thanks, Monica. All right.
Thanks for your service, Monica.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, you guys have a good retreat.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Take care.